Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and 01700. By the way, those will be the numbers you use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, talk that get results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and 01700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and you're getting on the show. You take as little time as possible so we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. You can also follow our live video stream of this program on our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe, and our Facebook channel at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again for joining us. Your voice in the community, thought that get results. Tonight, the Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues around the table. Let me say good evening to the hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio. Good evening to all those who are listening and viewing this edition of Let's Talk Tonight. I want to say, Webbo, that tonight we certainly have much to be thankful for, and I believe that we want to give thanks and praise to our Creator God for protecting us in the recent passage of Hurricane Tammy. Webbo, I want to take this opportunity to offer my condolences to all those families who are in mourning tonight, whether it's the loss of a family member, a friend, a loved one, a colleague. Certainly want to take this opportunity to offer my condolences, and I certainly hope that they can remember their family member, their colleague, with certain fond memories. To those who are celebrating tonight, Webbo, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, or a celebration of any kind, some accomplishment in their life, I certainly want to wish them a wonderful evening, and I hope that they are having a good time and recognizing that we certainly have much to be thankful for. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I am certainly looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Conrad Naya Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my colleagues around the table, to your hard-working staff here, Webbo at Vaughan Radio, and to everyone tuning to us by the various means that we have to our access today. I want to say hail to my brethren, Mr. Osborne Liebert in Connecticut, and my friends in Toronto. Usually tune into this wonderful program where we discuss issues affecting the people, issues affecting the region, globally. It's quite a turbulent situation abroad, Webbo, and we are here also dealing with turbulence in the weather. So minds have been racing, and I suppose, as Mr. Brand said, we have a lot to give thanks for, and we still have to keep our guards up going forward. When we think about the weather. Apart from that, Webbo, I'm very happy that you have invited me once again to take part in this discussion, and I hope we can walk away with something fruitful tonight, Webbo. Thank you so much.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts and most obviously the gracious people of Nevis and those who will be viewing us on the World Wide Web, CBI, or Facebook, as the case might be, throughout the Caribbean Basin also. However, I have been listening to the news clip. I unfortunately didn't really listen to the Honorable Dr. Mark Brantley news conference, but at the same time, I heard this disturbing portion that there are people who in our nation who scoffed at the idea of the CBI program, which is the premier money earner of our nation. And I'm saying to you, we've got something that we have created. It was created by the Honorable Simeon Daniel, I would imagine.
The
Back
CBI, the CBI program.
Well, that portion initially. Anyway, based on how I got it, he's the one who brought to the fore the concept of investing in our real estate, properties, as the case might be, in the early years. I don't remember what
So, let's say hear that again.
well, maybe I stand to be corrected.
Just because I said let's hear it again.
Yes, yes.
I didn't hear what you were saying. I heard Bran. But if you think it's wrong, you don't have to repeat it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Let me just move on and comment on what I know. Based on the fact that this is our main revenue earner, and based on what I heard from the little clip of the Premier's press conference through Von Radio, I am appalled that people stand by to oppose or criticize or not happy with our CBI program. And I'm saying they don't understand the crucial, vital, and importance of having monies coming in as a source of revenue, which alleviates some of the burden, financial burden of the taxpayer. So, for the Honorable Premier to identify a certain segment of our community not being on board with and embracing the CBI program in its entirety, I am appalled. I leave it there, Webbo.
Mr. Stanley, if my recollection is correct, that the CBI program came into being under the Simmons administration 40 years ago. And I believe that it was somewhat rebranded, revolutionized, so to speak, under the Denzel Douglas administration. I agree with you, Mr. Stanley, that for anyone to try and spread what I would call propaganda or false news about the CBI program is unfortunate. Because I believe that all of us here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis understand and recognize that the proceeds from the CBI program has sought to develop the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis in all aspects of our development, in education, in healthcare, in energy, in infrastructure development, in security, you name it. The Premier indicated today that the CBI program is some 52% of the revenue generation for the federal government. Now, you take 52% out of the revenue generation at the federal level, and what will it be? What do we have to replace it with? I think that at times it's unfortunate that there are those who feel that because they may have a certain platform, because they feel that they have an outlet, so to speak, that they can try to denigrate every aspect of our country. And it's unfortunate, because I feel that while we are seeking to develop our country, we really cannot and ought not to be having these kind of characters, so to speak, that is seeking to destroy what we are trying to build. We have basically enough external forces that is trying to destroy what we are trying to build. And I think that if we are to recognize the importance of the CBI program and the CBI initiative to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis, then I believe that all of us should understand that we need to defend it and to protect it. I feel that while we on Nevis continue to say that we recognize the importance of the CBI, we understand its importance to the development of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have had our own qualm, so to speak, with how the whole revenue and so on has been shared with the island of Nevis. And we can have that argument, we can have that conversation. But I think that for anyone to think that we are to try to do what we need to do to try and denigrate and destroy the program, it's unfortunate. We have much more powerful nations throughout the world that is engaged in a similar activity. United States, Canada, European countries are engaged in this kind of activity. And I feel that perhaps at times, as small island states, as we try to develop our economy, as we try to generate or carve out ways in which we can generate revenue, that these larger countries keep coming at us. And we have the historical data. We have it in sugar, we have it, I think that the Premier today spoke about cricket, we have that. And the issue of what is being thrown at the CBI program is just another classic example of what we are facing in these islands. And it's not just happening here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Throughout the region, Antigua has their program, Dominica has their program, and at every single turn there are other forces that are trying to destroy them. So I want to say to our people, let us protect what we have. Let us not try to destroy something that I think has been a good initiative for the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. Is it perfect? Has we benefited to the extent that we would like here on the island of Nevis? No. But it has brought some benefit to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we would like to see that continue for many years to come.
To be honest, it is a comprehensive program with regard to revenue expenditure, and you touched on various aspects of our government that got a direct pipeline into that revenue earner, CBI. And as a result, we have to keep it going. There are people who like success. There are countries that like success. Let me bring it down back to communities like success. But they hate the successful. And this is, of course, quite unfortunate that people who are supposed to see the practicality, the necessity of that program should come aboard and help to improve that revenue earner. Because once the revenue earner is there and we get the assistance of all hands on deck, then it becomes easier for us to budget and ultimately have monies to expend throughout our various departments. How can those people who are on the negative side see? How can't they appreciate the revenue earner? If the government were to increase taxes in certain categories, you would hear the hue and cry from several quarters of our community, simply because nobody wants to pay more. Pay your fair share. And this program is carrying an enormous amount of the burden, tax burden, that we are being spared. So my thing is to tell to those who are not on board, who are ready to criticize, and who may not want to contribute whatever idea to enhance that program, they are on the negative side, which is counterproductive in my view.
The CBI program, Citizens by Investment, it's nothing new, really. It's a global thing happening in many countries. Of course, it's absolutely and very relevant and important to the running of our economy here in St. Kitts Nevis and regionally. I'm not aware of the utterances of the critics, but there's nothing wrong in criticizing something. For those who want to put an end to it, they should be talking about a replacement. What can replace it? Because that's politics today. You cannot show up with some empty talk, say you want to remove an important exercise that earns money for the country and replace it. If you're criticizing it to a great extent, say it's not good and you want to you have to think about replacing it. We sometimes speak quite emptily about what can be done or what should be done, and we never tend to provide any alternative. The importance of the program cannot be overstated, obviously. If it's perfect, maybe not, and I don't think it's a settled concept in terms of the ins and outs. And I mean, they might have to do some tweeting of it going forward, because as Mr. Brand said, there are always people out there to get, to slow us down, to make us more and more dependent on them, and at times hindering us from using what we have or what we can think of. Of course, we are aware that we are in a global community, and we are also aware of the things that can be associated with it, and that's why I think this have not simply evolved in 2022 and 23. I mean, this program has been through the ups and downs, the hills and the valleys, and it has survived as a major money earner for the Federation and the region. I'm not sure who've been making such comments, but people who are thinking of holding office, they got to be very careful in what they're saying, because I know Nevis have suffered from that, where government, where there is the opposition, and nothing good can be said, nothing good can be done for Nevis, because they're simply in the opposition, and they go out there to stop it from happening. And what happened in the end is the people who suffer. We become, of course, we find ourselves in the backwaters, not being able to achieve that what other islands have achieved, simply because we play in this cat and mouse game with people's life. And so if these comments are made by the people who are trying to get in office, they got to be mindful. They got to be mindful, because when they're in office, they are faced with the same circumstance this government is faces, which is to take care of the welfare, the security of its people, and the advancements of its people. And sometimes when I reflect back on people like Dr. Sim Daniel, I want to know, when he assumed the premiership of Nevis, he must be asked himself, where am I to start? Because there is so many things that was not happening, and because we never had that opportunity to develop our offices as we see it today, civil service and everything else. And so things got to be done. Sometimes people doesn't understand it, But things got to be done on the financial front to ensure that we have a degree of independence. We can pay our people, we can pay our bills, we can pay our loans, and so forth. And I think where we are today, as we have arrived at this big money earner, it must be carefully protected, and of course we have to adhere to international standards and requirements. So I think it's something that no one should be messing with, really, other than to give positive ideas for its advancement, because if it provides 50% of our revenue, that means, and we also know it's quite fragile. It's quite fragile. That means we are maybe not in the best position, relying so heavily on it. And so it's to me a warning call. It's a call to have that knowledge that it's playing such role that we probably got to bring other things forward and use our minds on our creative thoughts or whatever it takes to provide revenue beyond what we are enjoying from the CBI program. So we got to be careful. We got to be mindful. As I say, I don't know the nature of the criticism. I don't know the critics. But just listening to my colleagues, I think I could have had this little 2 pence.
The efforts on the part of the Premier and the Prime Minister made in terms of diversifying our economy, that is an integral part of the diversification of our economy, which the wheel has been invented, and therefore it must be enhanced, not to be torn down. At the same time, based on, again, the mammoth effort regarding the leaders trying to diversify our economy, it should be a story that everybody should embrace, and to take it and push it upward and onward, so we could be in a better position and we would be very competitive in the sphere of our region, simply because of the revenue we are deriving from our CBI program. Diversification of an economy is a tall order, and it is at the forefront of the leadership thoughts, ideas, and ultimately the implementation of programs to keep money coming in to our island, our country, St. Kitts Nevis.
Stanley, you are correct that the diversification of our economy is absolutely critical. I think that for us, a small island state, the injection of direct foreign investment is also important, because I believe that as a small island state, we cannot always look at our population and tax them. We have to be able to diversify, and a big part of that is what we call foreign direct injection of cash and investment. I believe that the CBI was able to achieve that, and achieve that very significantly, because the revenue generated from our CBI initiative is mainly foreign. And I think that it has worked, and worked well, for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. While we seek to diversify, we must always ensure, though, Mr. Stanley, that the various sectors that we do have that are functioning well, that we must at all times seek to give them as much support as we possibly can. And we cannot ensure that we increase our taxes on them to the extent that it makes it difficult for them to function. So I think that managing our various economies, especially in these small territories and limited tax base, we have to be mindful that every bit of foreign injection of cash is much less that we would have to tax our people. So it's a very delicate balance, and I believe over the years we have sought to ensure that we do not increase our taxes on our people. It is something that we have fought extremely hard not to do, because we recognize that the population itself cannot continue to absorb and be taxed and taxed and taxed. We have to be able to generate that fund and that financing externally.
Will Rogers said we must invest in land because they're not making any more of it. As a result, the CBI program addresses the foreign investment, direct foreign investment, where people see the value of our space and they just want to be part and parcel to earn or have a small piece of the rock simply by their investing in whether it's a condo or a larger hotel, meaning that they in fact have become part owner of our space, and therefore because of that quote that I just mentioned with Will Rogers, it means that they can earn and own a piece of our space without truly expanding the space.
Well, Mr. Stanley, did you have any idea how much, this is on a slightly different note, the passport is being sold? And general idea?
The information is there. Sadly, I am not in government, and therefore I can't definitively answer your question.
Okay, great. Because the point I want to make, and you can give some clarity. If all these people really were interested in actually having a piece of our rock, of St. Nevis, wouldn't we be overwhelmed?
In terms of the population size?
In terms of the population?
Not at all.
Not at all?
No, not at all. I mean, sadly, there is a war between Israel and Gaza, the Palestinian, and you hear the density. The density is the most dense area on God's earth. And therefore,
we don't want that.
Look, the thing is that the space doesn't, it's in, more or less in theory.
Yes.
The passport can be categorized as theoretical. We sell you a passport, we give you a room in one of our condos, which might never be visited by you. But we have gotten or realized your investment, which is between 250,000 US and 400,000. I mean, somebody attempted to water down the formula but it is based on our management, local management of the program, to keep it at a high level. And simply because they're not building any more land, making any more land, people will come. And as we go to the next half a century, who knows what our passport would worth just for some foreigner to acquire it. It might be 50,000 or 500,000. Maybe 5 million. All right. So let's keep the program going and see how many people will invest in our country just for a little bit of space. Well,
I read recently in some international paper that it was about 29,000 passports has been sold from the Federation. And of course they're looking at it quite gloomy in a sense, to say, well, they have sold more passports, or they are giving people more citizenship than the actual population of certainly Nevis, but not the Federation. But it's quite a lot comparing to, okay, so we are enjoying the fact that these people are investing but not occupying. Correct, Mr. Stanley? Is that a correct statement?
it might not be a correct statement, because there are people who would have invested in the program, but they may not have ever been here. But
Gentlemen, you want me to bring a little reality to what you're talking about? You have a voters list, right? For, let's say, St. John's. And you have 9 or 10,000 people on that voters list. St. John, St. Paul, let's say Nevis 9. The population of Nevis is 12,000. Right? And then when you add the others, right, you get a population on the voters list that exceeds the population physical. So what's the big problem all about? That happens.
quite so.
If you even minus the CBI program, and then you count up the number of divisions that exist, you're going to find a greater number that does not reside on Nevis than reside in Nevis. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that is only to put, listening to you, the discussion you're having, just to put that into perspective for you. So go ahead.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I'm saying that we got the space, and simply, if people are willing to pay for a small space within our nation, but more particularly, I'm somewhat need to propel my own interest. Nevis. Let's beckon to those abroad, from stable countries, people with good reputation, for them to come and invest in our CBI program. Bring your money, and we will give you a passport which entitles you to have a little space within our nation. And I again beckon to those people, come to our shores.
What I would say to Naya is that St. Kitts and Nevis does not have the requirement of applicants to the CBI program to be resident here on the island of, or in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. That requirement has not necessarily been enshrined in our our program. There are certain other countries which has that residency requirement status. So St. Kitts and Nevis does not have that. And I believe that for me would have been one of the main attraction of the St. Kitts and Nevis Citizenship by Investment Program, because I think that oftentimes we take a look at the number of persons or number of passports that may have been issued, and we make the comparison to what the population is. And we question whether or not, if all of these persons were to
Have
come
residency.
to our shores tomorrow, and it's a valid concern, it's a valid issue that we must take a look at. Will in the future that there would be a residency requirement? I don't know, but I think that the drafters of this CBI program recognize that we have a small population on island in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I think that they felt that they may not necessarily need that residency status for them to issue their citizenship. So I feel that over the years it has worked, and I think that while we recognize that we want to be able to ensure that we can protect our population, and I think Webbo gave a classic example really, where you look at the voters list and a significant number of persons who are registered on that voters list does not necessarily reside here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, but they have an invested interest in the country or in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, which give them that right to be on the voters list. And we have had that argument over the years whether they have that entitlement or not, but I feel that they do, because they have an invested. Mr. Stanley spoke about space, physical space. I think that they have that interest.
Well, like I said, the whole thing about the wars that are between Russia and Ukraine, Israel and the Palestinians, it's about space, you know. It's about resources, whether it is air space, land space, ocean space, as the case might be. It's about resources and space. So let us beckon again to those who are truly interested in our theoretical passport or physical passport, and beckon to them, let them come, invest, and we need the foreign investment, because if you are able today to ensure that somebody spends $250,000 with you, it means that you don't have to look forward for that $250,000 from that particular person anymore, but to move on to somebody else where they'll be able to continue to spend and grow your business. So we've got a product. It might have to be tailored, tweaked a little to the extent where we're able to entice people. Even restricting some of their rights, I do not know if those people will be given the right, or they have the rights, all the rights and privileges of an indigenous Nevisian or Kittitian. But if we are able to restrict some of their rights and still get the value from the investment, it will be a plus.
I say no more about the citizens' investment. program, I would like to say it's a program that's been working for us, and any good adjustment that need to be made, we should actually get on with it and keep it a part of our national product, I suppose.
Okay, let me get a break. This is Thought That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Library, the Honorable Spencer Brand. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 01700. We're back after these.
A 0.9-acre plot of elevated land is up for sale. This plot overlooks Burden Pasture and Long Point Port and is located at Hamilton Estate, Nevis. For more information and or serious inquiries, call Mr. Edric Stanley at Stanley's Real Estate at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Always satisfying. Vaughn Radio, the powerhouse.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with the Honorable Spencer Brand, Conrad Nye Library, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls are 1-869-469-1616 or 1700. We're through with that. What else we got?
Well, let me bring to the fore. Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stanley. Well, but I want to use this opportunity to say thank you to the people of Nevis. We have just seen the passage of Hurricane Tammy. And I really want to use this opportunity, Webbo, to say to the people of Nevis a big thank you. Last Thursday, Webbo, in my capacity as Minister with responsibility for disaster management, we convened a stakeholders meeting at the Disaster Management Office, where the various stakeholders, fire, police, the various government allied agencies, education, health, our social partners, they basically gave an update as to the level of preparedness for the island of Nevis in the onset of Hurricane Tammy. And I was very comforted, Webbo, that the island of Nevis at that meeting was in a state of readiness, in a state of preparedness for any eventuality. Mark you, we don't have much control over Mother Nature, but you can only prepare. And I really want to say to all of the stakeholders, Red Cross, the health, you name it, everybody, how proud I am in the way in which that they would have prepared themselves, the way in which that we would have conducted ourselves throughout the onset of Hurricane Tammy. I want to, from this rostrum, Webbo, tip my hat again to the director of the Nevis Disaster Management, Mr. Brian Dyer, and his team there at our disaster management unit. I feel, Webbo, that I know that he has been at this for quite some time, but I think that his level of seriousness, his level of preparedness was able to keep us in good stead. We had, Webbo, on Sunday. Some 4+ inches of rain in about 3-4 hours. And I think that the way in which the island of Nevis was able to withstand the onslaught of that intensity of rainfall, I think that we all must be proud. Of course, we have had some damages here and there. We saw some washed out. We saw some overtopping of some of our major bridges and culverts. I think that our road network and our drainage would have stood up. There was some ongoing road construction where we saw some washed out. But I think, Webbo, all in all, that we did reasonably well. We have been getting some videos, Webbo, and I want to say to the people of Nevis, whatever videos you have, keep sending them to us, because we are keeping very using these videos as very good information, Webbo, as to how else we can upgrade and make improvement in our drainage system throughout the island. I think that the videos are critical data. They are going to help us in our expansion and our designs of additional drainage. And I want to say to the people of Nevis, continue to send whatever pictures, whatever videos that they do have to us at the Ministry, at the Disaster Management. Well, I also want to thank you once again for partnering with us at Disaster Management. I believe you and the radio station and the staff here at Van Radio continue to ensure that we are able to get out the necessary information. And I'm really thankful for the partnership. The Red Cross, the fire, our health care. It was an all hands on deck situation, Webbo. And I after our meeting last Thursday, I requested an emergency cabinet meeting where I was able to update my colleagues as to the status of our preparedness. And I think that while we did not necessarily get a full-blown category 3 or 4 hurricane, I feel that it positions us, Webbo, to be even in a much better position for the next time around, because we recognize the good practices. We recognize that there are some areas where we definitely need to improve on, and I think that this experience, in my mind, the people of Nevis said that they would prepare themselves, and I really want to thank the people of Nevis. I think in most cases we ask the people of Nevis to stay off of the road. We recognize that there was a lot of water on the road, and I feel that if there were persons who were on the road, we could have been sitting here tonight with a different story. So I really want to thank the people of Nevis to adhere to the requests and the advice and the warnings, and I feel that all of us can be proud, and we can say thanks that we did not experience or had much more significant damage, because we were prepared. Like I said, the information went out, and I feel that the people of Nevis responded to the necessary information and was guided accordingly. We had, throughout this incident, one hurricane shelter on the island of Nevis open, which I thought was, in a situation like this, to only have one hurricane shelter open, it means that there were persons who felt comfortable enough in their own.
Mr. Brown, let me just interrupt you and take this. We'll come back to you. Thank you for holding. Good evening.
Blessed night, Brother Webbo, and blessed night to your panel you have on your program tonight. You know?
Good night.
How you all are doing? Greetings and love.
We're doing well.
I give thanks. I heard some discussion all pertaining to the CBI program, and I heard one of your panel there, your host there, outline that the CBI program had done great for have done some good things for us. So I would like to ask, what kind of things have you done for the poor man and poor woman in St. Kitts, and who made that statement there? So if you have a response to give me, I would like you to give me, please, my brethren. Give thanks.
Every dollar that comes into our nation has a trickle-down effect. Once it reaches the government, which the government is the recipient of the money that would come from that program, and every dollar that reaches the coffers of our treasury trickles down to every man, woman and child. I do not know what your occupation is, but
don't worry about your occupation, brethren, because me don't go in that part of the revenue there, because that is not a trustworthy revenue.
Well, what I'm saying to you,
cocaine dealing between it, and I put that without any fear. And I know that factually, it's not something make up, but you have your experience in your financial growth, so that's your experience. But we know, as poor people who own things and it's not trickling down to how you're taking it out, because you know that it's not factually true. Because if you're trickling down, you would have benefit things and needs of the poor man and woman out of the concept of what we're facing on here in these kind of situations, my brethren. So if wherever you feel on that level, that ain't meaning that the fracture going are there. Because if you come to think, I hope you could go right around the island and think it, and go right around the island and give me an emphasis that he have given, as you say, he trickle down to the man and woman and children and child.
well, if you were to tell me if you own a car, if you own a donkey, if you own a house, I can elaborate as to how it trickles down. Do you own anything at all?
Well, me own, I own nothing, because I give thanks for what the Creator give life, and that's the only thing I'm thankful for.
Well,
But let me say this here, my brethren, because I will just let you all go continue your programming. It's a good program, and it's good things that you all are discussing this matter at hand. You see? Because we need to entail for the young ones them to understand this program very carefully, because at how things are laying out now, from the report them that are stating him under the scrutiny of the first Prime Minister we had, and under the scrutiny of the second Prime Minister, and then the same under the scrutiny of the third Prime Minister, and now we have a fourth Prime Minister, and none of them could give us a strong detail in what this program have enhanced for singers and neighbor, enhanced for the friends and the colleagues them, because they are Masons, and I hope you ain't a Mason, my brethren, because maybe you're a Mason, that's why you could talk like that. So if you're a Mason, you better watch your step in your state, in your words.
what you mentioned the trade or the organization?
Yes?
When you mention a Mason, are you referring to the trade or the organization?
I'm talking about the Freemason and the Illuminati, not the trade.
Okay, well, I'm not there. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm trying to find out from you, if God has been good enough to give you a certain ownership, if it's a donkey, a mule, a cart, horse and cart, a piece of land, as the case might be, the trickle-down effect affects us all as taxpayers, as citizens of this country, and based on that, if enough money is not in the government's coffers, taxes would be imposed on all of us. And if you own, like I'm trying to gather from you, anything, it means that the cost would be higher if there wasn't a trickle-down effect of the CBI program with reference to the revenue that's coming in.
Caller,
but I would like to say, but before I would like to say, the quote where you just outlined, it sounds good, but it still don't reach the people in the emphasis that it needs to reach in a certain way. And you know that to my brethren, but go ahead, Brother Webber, and I'll continue our program.
Let me ask you a question before you go.
Yes.
You indicated that the CBI program have not necessarily trickled down to the ordinary man on the street. I believe that was your comment, correct?
Yeah, that is what I said, and I hold by that.
Okay. Can you tell me then, how would you like to see the CBI program trickle down to, as you put it, the ordinary man and woman on the street?
Okay, one other thing I would like to say, we have indicated from program where is to help development of St. Kitts and Nevis. But when you look at it, we still going out there going to put yourself into your own aspect than what we have in the CBI program. So some of the things we only utilize where it needs to be utilized. Let me look at the example now. The former Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, he indicated that there was, what you call it, surplus after surplus. No, and then he outlined to in his aspect as doing something to revise the economy. When you look at it, they start with this roofing program. The people who was currently need for repair ones, that coming out of the CBI program, and that ain't come out of the National Bank and them other bank only is CBI program that they come out of. It didn't reach the people them generally, and it was squander and hurt a lot of people who were in need for that support there.
Well, let me just give you an example.
Go ahead, my brother.
Do you have a social security number, a card?
Yeah, me have a social security card, but I don't work for the system.
Well, I'm saying to you, Prime Minister Drew, just the other day, for independence, earmarked $1,000 per person who has a social security number, and that $1,000 will be given to you from the CBI program. That's a direct impact with reference to how it trickles down to the small man, including yourself.
You know, when for none there, and I feel.
Well, just sign up.
But Brother Webbo, is Brother Webbo, baby?
No, this is Minister Brand. Let me say something to you quickly before you go, right?
Minister who?
Spencer Brand. Let me say something.
I'd rather hear your voice because I need to see you soon. My name is Ross Aya.
Let me say something to you quickly, right?
Go ahead.
I'm going to just give you one or two examples of how the CBI would have benefited the island of Nevis. A few years ago, the island of Nevis was able to procure some monies from the CBI program to purchase a new watt-zilla generator there at the power plant in Nevis. If we had to go to open market and at a financial institution to raise that monies to buy that generator, it would have mean that we would have had over $10+ million as an added cost on the backs of the people of Nevis, right? And we would have had to increase the cost. You hear me?
Yeah.
I'm just giving you one example. Let me give you another one.
All right. What a minister.
We were able to also access the CBI program to construct phase 1 of the Mondo Track facility, right? The Mondo Track facility that we built just across the road here at Long Point was one of the latest turf in the entire region. And what that did for us here on the island of Nevis, it allowed our children on the island of Nevis to have a surface that they can train on, so when they go to international meet, they were accustomed to such a facility. And I will say to you that since that Mondo Track was constructed, we have seen our children here on the island of Nevis have gone to meets in the Federation and have done exceptionally well. So you ask about the trickle-down effect. I am saying to you that while I believe that the majority of Kittitians and Nevisians would think that the CBI trickle-down effect must end up in their own pocket, we have to look at the added benefit. And I think that the added benefit include our entire human capital development via the CBI. And I want you to look at it from that kind of angle.
I look at it at a broader angle. That's why I say I respect you all. So, discount but just say, give me more premises that this year have raised the standard of our living. Because in the context, we are still living by a hand-to-mouth household around here. But the kind of project houses the majority people, 4,000 square feet. Maybe not all you need it, but in Sinkers you could talk about the details, because these are the emphasis you're telling me. The water from away from tenement yard, but you're still putting us back into a tenement yard again. So going on a development around here, it's only saying things to make it sound like it's doing things.
Caller.
It's good to see the program going, and I'll continue educating the people.
Caller.
Please.
Caller. Yeah, I just, I'm listening, so I find that your question to me is a legitimate question to be educated and get information. And so I thought as well that one of the ways you were asking it helps poor people and the ordinary person. I think the PAP and the PEP and the STEP and these programs are funded by monies that came from the CBI program as well. So I just, pointed out that that's another way in which they use it.
I know these things, I tell you, they still undermine the economical value of development around here. Because when you're being a small tool of economics within them kind of wages here, how can we benefit around here?
Yeah.
The people benefited are the actors them.
Right,
I'm bringing in.
Yeah, I got you, which to me is another point, which we can also discuss. But in terms of specifically what the CBI monies are being used directly for and benefiting directly poor people, I just thought those were some of the points.
Thanks a lot, but this is Brother Webbo now?
Yes.
Well, good to hear your voice. I was listening to you since my grandmother was alive, and she done ran on to the graveyard, so that's why I continue listening.
Yes.
I'm a brethren who's being versatile within education, so I never stop learning. Even though you never see other college and universities.
Yeah.
But my university is ganja to open up the mind of what we see around our people development. So thanks a lot. May you all have a positive night, with the love of the Almighty.
Before he goes,
All right. Okay, caller. Thank you.
let me try and give him some information.
Yeah, that's okay. He's gone.
Well,
Walk with me. Mr. Brown, I interrupted you, so you can continue.
Well, but I think I was more or less completed with what I just wanted to end by saying where I started to say thanks to the people of Nevis, really, for the way in which they would have conducted themselves, the response in which that they would have, the way in which that they would have responded really to the various requests from the necessary partners and stakeholders in this storm.
Okay, Mr. Brand. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, gentlemen. I just wondered if you all had any thoughts on why it is so hard to pin down exactly how much money was made by the CBI. It seems like regardless of which administration is in power, it's like pulling teeth. And I'm wondering if it's because people would be alarmed at the priorities, well, first of all, about the sums involved, and secondly, the priorities that the various governments use the money for, right? Because really and truly, I mean, even if it was half of the billions that they're calling, that people are speculating, I think the country should have been in a much better shape than it is in, right? And really and truly, it should not be. I mean, it's public money, so I don't understand why it is such a top secret. I don't know if you all had any thoughts on it.
I have a thought listening to you. Is it fair to suggest from what you're saying that we're getting a lower figure than what is actually made?
Well, I saw that claim. I saw that claim in a publication that the figures released, I think, in 2018 was actually lower than what was actually made, which begs the question, the age-old question, where the money gone?
So someone wrote or said that, hypothetically, that $1 million was reported, but that's lower than what actually was made?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So did the author of that writing say what was made?
It was actually stated by the ostensibly, I think it was some paper in the was it the United Kingdom?
Yeah, well, whatever the source was, did they reveal how much it was?
Yes, they actually quoted the figure. I can't remember offhand.
Oh, okay. So we hypothetically, just to get the point. So, for instance, they stated that $1 million was reported, but they actually made $2.
What they did was say that the numbers of persons who acquired citizenship were actually underreported.
Okay. Did they report the number?
Yes, they actually called a figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So and that person or author,
Publication.
right, of the publication they were not authorities of the CBI program or the government?
No.
Okay. And is it fair for me to suggest or to conclude that you do believe the publication rather than the CBI sources or the authorities?
No, I am not sure that the publication could exaggerate as well.
Okay.
But the fact is, in the absence, that's what I'm saying, the absence of official figures from government sources or the CBI officials, we never know, and it's open to speculation.
So you're suggesting that the CBI program or the officials in St. Kitts and Nevis have never given a report?
Like I said, I think it was 2018 that the then Prime Minister did quote a figure, but since then I haven't heard anything, and certainly previous to that we weren't getting figures either.
So we never gotten any figures other than 2018?
To my recollection.
Okay,
right.
so but you will also agree that your recollection is just that. For instance, Mr. Stanley's recollection might produce some figures.
Perhaps.
Or Mr. Brand's.
That's how I began I asked why weren't there official releases of these things?
Right, but you would agree there may have been official releases, but it's just that you may not have.
Oh yeah, that's quite possible.
Oh, okay, all right.
Too many people are wondering the same thing. That yes, I might have missed it, but everybody missed it?
Well, not necessarily, because and this can segue me into some earlier discussion that I was listening to from the panel, where and something else, something I also want to have to bring up as a topic myself, where we are battling with a lot of fake news, and a lot of people, more so than ever, I would argue, bringing out negativity because they feel it will work. And as a consequence of it, right, when we only drink in that particular negativity, we sometimes are deliberately blinded or turn a blind eye to what the actual reality or the truth is. You agree with that?
Of course.
Okay.
But
and walk with me. And I want to segue into, I don't know if you got the latest international news, where some of Mr. Trump's lawyers and so on, close heavyweights, are flipping on him.
Uh-huh.
And what was happening in that situation in the United States was fueling a lot of things in the islands as well. because a lot of people were figuring that they could be disobedient, misbehave, do all these wrong things and get away with it. And I'm now hoping that now the thing is flipping. One of my aunts, late aunts, bless her soul, Auntie Flo, always used to tell me, right and truth will always find its rightful place. So we're having a lot of that, I sure you would agree, in the islands, where people, even as we do a talk show, and everybody does a talk show now, and just fill it with negativity and a lot of lies and stuff like that, and it work, and
transparent government,
and it's working.
It's going to happen in the absence of accountability, transparency, integrity in government. That is exactly what would happen, and that is what we should be calling for. Right.
I think you and I
open and transparent. And
I think
things like that.
I think you and I are agreeing that it is happening. Correct?
That what is happening.
You just talk about. You said in the absence of.
Right. Yeah.
So we both agree that it is happening.
That transparency and so on is not happening, right?
No, you said in the absence of transparency and so on and so forth, then we would have the negativity, the lies, and the speculation and so on, right?
I wouldn't call them lies because we don't know.
What I'm saying is, right? So, we do agree that it is happening.
Right.
Right. Now, what we will now debate is whether or not, right, are the reason why it is happening. You're saying it is because they are not giving, the officials are not giving the necessary information, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can I give you a case in point?
Sure.
A couple months ago, or a year or two ago, we had a discussion right here on this Let's Talk. And I know the voice, and I almost will take the chance to say that you probably were listening that night as well. And they had a campaign against Mr. Brantley about $400 million which he received and could not account for. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And I kept listening. And I said to one of the accusers at the time, so, they were arguing, all they wanted to know is what Mr. Brantley did with this $400 million. And I said, so if Mr. Brantley were to explain to you what he did with the $400 million, then what? And they said, well, then I will finish, I'll hush, because all I want to know is what he did with it.
Okay.
A second or two after, I saw the phones flashing, just like I said your line flashing with you, and I said, caller, you're on the air. Then I heard, Webbo, good evening, this is Mark Brantley. And I said, good. And he explained what he did with the $400 million. Well, he couldn't explain everything, right? I, as the host, in the interest of time and understanding, I said, well, okay, I got you. I asked the caller if they were satisfied. I said, well, the caller said, I'm not the caller. The person, the accuser said, well, I still ain't satisfied, you're not accepting that. So, you would agree that not in that, just that case alone, you agree that sometimes we have that sort of thing?
Oh yes, you can have difference of opinion. Remember the
no, in that case, it wasn't a difference of opinion, you know. What I was pointing out in terms of what you said was where a person is pretending that all they want to know is the facts or what is, and then when they get it, it was just a bluff, because they're going to continue with the accusation and the negativity. You agree with that?
Not necessarily, because remember the Prime Minister himself wandered out aloud what was done with the money too.
Yeah, but you see, the difference.
Higher than that.
But the difference is with that example. While he was wandering out aloud, he did not come and discuss with us, for instance, as the accuser was. So we had the accuser right here, and we engaged.
You mean the accused? Oh, you mean you had the accuser right there?
Yes, and then the accused call in, and so we had a good debate.
Okay.
But with the other example that you're bringing up, you see, a lot of people do that. They take the position and the bullet platform they have, and they talk, and they're not cross-examined by, certain.
But wouldn't you expect a prime minister to be first okay with the fact, since he sent the money, and secondly,
Sure, I would expect that.
Right.
And I would work with me, and I would also like to personally ask him the same question I had asked the accuser.
okay, but he would be privy to information that us ordinary persons would not be.
Sure, and that's why I would like to ask him the questions.
So why wasn't it asked?
Why wasn't it asked?
That's the other point, eh?
I'm answering you. You said, why wasn't it asked?
Uh-huh.
The difference was, the accuser was here with us, and the person who was accused was kind enough to us to say, here am I. We didn't have to go searching nowhere with any flashlight or anything. Are you following me?
Right.
Okay, because the accused understood that he had a public responsibility because of the position he held. So we are not supposed to be running with no searchlight or anything to look for anybody. You agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. The press should be relentless in going after the truth.
So let me ask you this. So you put Mr. Stanley as the Prime Minister tomorrow, and you give Mr. Stanley full license to run from us, and we got to run to find him?
Yeah, that's what the press is about.
No, work with me. I'm asking you a question. Mr. Stanley becomes our Prime Minister tomorrow, and then all of a sudden he has all our information, knowledge and everything, as you say, and you give him license to run away from us, and we have to run behind him and hide?
Run away from him.
Hello? With a flashlight? I'm asking you. So that's what you're saying?
I'm saying that the press should do the job.
No, well, I'm asking you then, if the press's job is to run behind Mr. Stanley, who now becomes the Prime Minister, right? And he has all authority and license to do that with our information and everything, because he is the Prime Minister, and the press is supposed to run with a flashlight and find him.
Oh yes.
And
if that's necessary to feed the public information,
yeah,
that it should be given.
What I'm asking you is, that is what you're recommending?
Yes, that the press should be more relentless, should be more activist, should be more aggressive in pursuing information from our public officials, so that the citizens who put them in power to be accountable and for to be transparent, get what they bargained for.
Okay, so that's on the one hand, and on the other hand, you're recommending and suggesting that the Prime Minister now should run as fast and hide as much as he can.
No.
Okay.
Especially not if they promise to be more open and transparent. That's the thing,
Oh, okay. So the example, the real example that I gave, which one for you will be more acceptable to you as a citizen? Where in the live real example where we had a discussion and an accuser, and the accused, who was Mr. Brantley, the Premier, thought it his responsibility,
right,
having our information and our resources and everything under his care,
yeah,
and find an accuser accusing and wants to know something, he, rather than hide,
right,
he presents himself and says, here am I. Walk with me, as opposed to the other fellow who you say should run and hide, and the press should.
Anybody should run and hide.
But I was asking. I am asking you, of the two scenarios, which one would you prefer? as a
I would
citizen.
prefer if public officials put themselves in the spotlight, as Mr. Brantley in this case did, right, and answer questions or answer his accusers directly.
Right. Well, I think we're on the same page. I agree with you that the press should run and hound and all that. And I also think that the persons, as in the case of the Premier, Mr. Brantley, they should present themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Stanley.
Here is a quotation from the late Ronald Reagan. Trust
But verified.
but verify. And in that regard, we trust people with the information, but they should be able to be good enough to let us verify the information. The caller is saying, based on a publication, that the CBI program brought in more money than was recorded or reported. How could we verify it? We shouldn't have to go look for anybody. Those who got the numbers should be able to come clean and tell us how much they have collected and where, if there's a deficit, where has it gone?
But Mr. Stanley, let me ask you this. You don't think that we get what we're getting because it's either what we want or what we accept?
Yes, quite so. Because,
So what are we complaining about?
well, simply because we expect things to be told to us factually, truthfully, responsibly. But it's not forthcoming, simply because those people, some of those people who are in authority, don't think that we are sensible enough, or wise enough, or hard-nosed enough to question the authority which we have given to them.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Yes, and good evening to Fountain Village, Calbourne here. Gentlemen, is not what we want, you know. Is not what we want, but I would say is what we take, because we the voters, citizens and well-wishers, are not relentless on our politicians. Just like the press is not relentless too. We have a system here in St. Kitts Nevis that we don't get information unless the police or the Prime Minister or one of the ministers release it. And whatever they say, we suck it up, as is the Holy Bible. And that is our problem. Right? The other thing concerning the CBI, the government officials and the head of the CBI is highly disrespectful and utterly out of order, because we have been asking for years, we have been asking on all the talk shows, we have gotten reporters ask questions, and instead they answer the question, they spin like a fan blade or a Ferris wheel and telling you things what you already know. You ask them a question, how much passports have been sold? What is the top countries, the amount of the top countries that possess our passport? And they are telling you things where you already know that they are processing it, they are upgrading it, they are going to the request of America, England, and all these things. We know that already. What we don't know is how much passport is out there. Now look at it. They just come out and tell us we sold 37,000 passports in the last several years. We are one of the top countries out there. And you're asking the question to our leaders and officials, and nobody is saying the EU is wrong, but it's all over in everybody newspaper, everybody news except St. Kitts Nevis, and it's not coming from our officials here in St. Kitts Nevis. You know how embarrassing that is, guys? To hear the EU telling you that, and our officials right here who we vote and elected and run up and down behind, not telling us that. So it's not what we want, but it's what we take. And we have to be relentless on them. Even what the press have to do is come like everywhere you meet them, every party, everywhere you go, you ask, you shove a mic, tape recorder to them, ask them the question until when they begin to bring the answers to us. But it's highly embarrassing and highly disrespectful if these authorities are not answering questions and not bringing forth information. I'm gone, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Webbo, that caller and the one before, I must side with them in their quest to find out more about the proceedings or how many passport has been sold. But when we make our own laws, it doesn't have to be, we are not depending on the personalities here. I believe such important and relevant information should be forthcoming. And but also, if I look at the other side, I can see where a degree of secrecy can be necessary, you know, because yes, the people would like to know, but how much would make the bigger guys out there comfortable? What figure would make them comfortable? We might institute an obligation, a legal obligation, to those who are, you know, running the program, that they reveal such information yearly at a certain time or whatever, or half yearly. But that might be not the right thing to do because of the international viewers and those who have our program under the microscope. The truth is, it's a highly competitive area across the region, and internationally it can be viewed as probably something that is totally out of the control of those who feel like they should have control of most things that goes on in the Western world, you know. And so I can see two sides of it. But of course, yes, it opens a door of speculation when we don't have that almost legal obligation where someone is entitled to come forward and give such information. And listen to me good, there is another side where I can understand the level of secrecy.
So the problem now is across the board, across administrations, meaning that
yes, it seems
okay. So let me put this and see whether it make any logical sense.
Yeah.
It follows then that were you to become the Prime Minister next year, notwithstanding that you are saying that it should be known to the public, we will still have the same problem with you as Prime Minister.
I would try, Webbo, to deal with that situation in a serious way.
But you don't think that those before they came
Yes.
So
But I would conclude. I would conclude because I would have probably decide, or if I decide to take a stand, not to let the public know. I would let the public know exactly that we're not letting you know.
so when you get there, you will.
If I make that decision, that I would let the public know, and obviously, let out the secret internationally, it could be troublesome. Then I would have done that.
You see, one of the reasons why I specifically put that question to you, Naya, I made some notes. Some very good points you were making in your opening comments about people. Let me take this and come back to you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes. I just like to ask Naya. You realize that banks, all banks, if you just transfer in over $10,000, you have to
Disclose.
account for it.
Yes.
And do you think that if the European Union and the North American, including Canada, whose company Canadian banknote produce our passports, do you really think that they don't know how much passports were sold, even without the government actually telling them, giving them the official number?
Absolutely.
You don't think they know this information already? So what I'm getting at is that the secrecy that you
Talking about.
suggest is needed in this. It's not a secret. It's just that it's a secret that is kept from the citizens.
Caller, let me ask you this. Why? Because Naya had said, I asked Naya the question, and I asked him if you think it's across administrations and personalities. You agree? He said yes. You agree with him?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go further and ask you, why do you think that is so?
Well, I suggested a reason that the numbers are vast, and if there's a reluctance, for the very same reason why, for instance, the exprime minister was asking what was done with the 400 million. Could you imagine asking what was done with the whatever billions were made? You look at the scale. Right? That's the only reason I can think of.
Right, but
there could be other nefarious reasons.
Right, but what intrigues me is why it goes across the board, because I just put it to Naya that were he to become the prime minister, let's say tomorrow, he may decide not to tell us also, while he is today canvassing for it to be told.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. They know what is the right thing to do, but when they get there, they don't do it. And interestingly enough, the CEO of the CBI, the new CEO of the CBI, has actually said under his watch, that information would be made public, because it should be made public. Whether he's going to pull back on that, I guess we'll wait and see. But he's actually out there. He made a comment on that SK9.
But the truth is, all of the CEOs have said the same thing, though, correct?
I'm not so sure.
Put another way. Were there any CEO who said they're not going to tell us?
No, we just didn't get to him.
All right. Okay. All right, caller. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
So Naya, the point I was making was that you had mentioned in your opening comments when you were talking about people criticizing is okay, the negativity is okay, but what would you replace it with? You're criticizing something, but you're offering no solutions. So that is why I basically ask you that question, because I find that basically happens a lot. When you're in one is in a particular position, they say one thing to get there. They go there and they do the same thing. And if you were adept enough, you would know that that's what they will do. The same thing, because the criticism, as you pointed out, should come with a persuasion that you have something to replace. Let me just make a quick point to what Mr. Brand was saying in reference to the hurricane and the flooding and stuff like that. And just to make the point that I was amazed that by yesterday how the roads were back in tip-top shape. At least the main road. That's what I mainly traveled on. And the other thing that I would say to people, it is okay to criticize. Nothing is wrong with that, especially if the criticism is constructive. But when you see you have certain situations like a hurricane and an earthquake and acts of God, the thing, how are you going to stop it? So when you're criticizing, of course you can say certain things to certain people, but I keep telling people all the time that I've been around for a while and I deal with the public. The public is not stupid. So when we make certain comments, as if to say that Mr. Stanley being in charge and 4 inches of rain is forecast, and so Mr. Stanley should be able to get out a big tarpaulin and so no rain falls on the island. You tell people that kind of reasoning, the people may not tell you that you're stupid, but that's what they're thinking, because the public is not stupid. So what we have to do is trying to be realistic when we have these sort of things and band ourselves together, work together and try and weather the storm. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Oh, good evening, Webbo.
Yes.
Good evening to your panelists. Good evening to the listening public. Webbo, that caller that just left, amazing. He started off, his opening statement was how painstaking it was to find out what, or get accountability for monies and stuff like that. And what he wanted to find out is what the Premier has done with 400 million. There are some people here in Nevis who seems to be washing their skin in that. They are not even concerned about whether the 400 million is our rightful share. As a matter of fact, when the then Prime Minister was asked how much money was in the CBI fund, his response was, what do you want to know that for? Okay. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, caller. Okay.
Yep, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. Well, again, it is, the rhetoric and how, people debate, and nothing is wrong with that, because if you're trying to get a particular goal, you use the different strategies and tactics that hopefully within the game, the rules, and you get there. And it is the opponent to basically defend. Right? Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yeah, good night, Webbo. Good night to your panelists. I listen to this program and many other program on your radio station, and also throughout the Caribbean. But I warn you, I'm not going to debate with all the CVI program and all this politics. I want you to play one song for me so the whole nation of St. Kitts and Nevis could hear it, like a Calypsonian thing from Trinidad. Chocolates, the mighty chocolates, the qualification of a politician. And that will raise a lot of discussion. between people understanding politicians and the whole society. Thank you.
Okay, maybe I could take a note of it. I could drop it for you tomorrow morning. So if you follow us all the way through, tomorrow morning about 7:35, I'll drop it for you. Let me make a note of it. Yes, go ahead, Adrian.
The call was called, and that song by Chalkless is heard by many, many times. I do not know why he has requested that of you, but at the same time, we know the content of this particular song that he has requested. It would have been interesting for you to have asked him, why should it be played? And he was expecting you to pull it now and play it now.
Yeah, but around here, people make a request and we accede to the request as best we could. So I told him I like to work with people, because I ask people to work with me. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening.
That you have a caller that calls in very often.
Caller, what I would like you to do is to listen to your phone, and you will hear the conversation.
I turn it off. That's why I went silent. You have a caller that calls in very regularly, and somebody has just called, just before me and pointed out, and he seems very much that he wants to give Mark a negative, points, make bad points about Mark Brantley, when the same situation arises in St. Kitts, but they don't talk about it. They let it flow. The criticism giving about Mark is not giving to St. Kitts. So I find that it's very hypocritical to listen to someone like that who calls in. Mark is the most open politician we have in St. Kitts and Nevis. There is not another politician who's been so open about what he does and what he doesn't do. I think it's very unfair about this people calling. I feel also that the government of St. Kitts is trying to give a bad impression about Mark as well, because they could call into you, just as you said, they could call into you and let you know exactly what Mark did. They know exactly what the government of Nevis does with the money. I thank you for listening to me.
Caller, might I point something out to you?
Yes, sir.
That same caller you referenced, I looked at it a little differently. In fact, I listened to him so closely that he actually said, he may not have willingly said it, but he actually said it. Whereas they were talking about Mr. Brantley and this $400 million, they never told us about the billions.
No.
He actually said that. So I listened to him very acutely. As I said, I don't even know. Walk with me. I don't even know if he knew he said it.
Yeah, but that's because you forced him. You actually forced him to. One night I was listening to you, and you were talking about the energy system that you're going to set up, in Nevis, right? And he wanted to know if if Nevis going to share that, the profits or everything with them in St. Kitts. But then when you ask him if when something is discovered in St. Kitts, if they're going to share that with Nevis, he said no.
Okay, so you see why they don't want to talk with us, right? Okay, thank you, caller.
The other thing is, these types of people, right? They when they're on the ear. I mean, I'm listening here in Sweden, so people around the world is listening to your program.
Right, but also I also said, you made the point, people are around the world are listening, and people around the world are not stupid, because just like you picked up when I cross-examined him, other people are doing it. So not to worry. Okay?
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Oh, yes. Remember, the very first thing I started out with was to suggest that the reason that no government, no administration was giving us details on the sale of the passports is because we did not want to come under scrutiny for how the money was spent. To say something was forced out of me or I inadvertently, that was exactly my premise at the outset.
Yeah, I think the specific point the caller was making, though, is this: that whilst they're asking Mr. Brantley, including the Prime Minister, to explain what he did with the $400 million, every single item that he bought, and what he did with it, they and we, the same people, were not asking the same Prime Minister what he did with the other $2 billion.
Right. And
right. So every time
all administration.
No, when you're talking about Nevis, you didn't say they didn't say all administration. They say Mark Brantley. You agree with that?
No.
Hello. Walk with me. When it has been referenced, the $400 million. Walk with me.
Yeah.
The monies for Nevis. They didn't say all administration.
No.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
They say Mark Brantley.
Yes.
Okay.
Specific.
Right. So, for justice and fairness, then, so why can't you say with the other billions? Why can't you say Timothy Harris?
But why didn't? But that's exactly what I said. That is exactly what I said. I said all administration, both Unity, the Douglas administration, and now the current administration.
No, the current administration. Hello, walk with me. Up to now, I hear you say Timothy Harris. He didn't have an administration.
Did I say Unity? Unity?
Okay, so Mark was part of Unity.
Wasn't he?
Yes. So when you're referring to Mark, why don't you say Unity then?
He know that. He should know.
Hello. You said that you didn't have to say Timothy Harris because Timothy Harris, you said Unity, and Timothy Harris was a part of Unity. You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So Mark was also a part of Unity.
Yes.
But when you want to reference Mark, you don't say Unity, you say Mark.
Well, if I want to reference Mark, I say Mark, not Unity.
Okay, so then the truth is, you don't want to reference Timothy.
But I would like to know, if Mark was part of that Unity organization, why didn't he know how much they were making?
Okay.
That was a fault of his.
Okay, now Mr. Brand would like to know if Mr. Harris was part of the administration, why didn't he tell us how much billions we were making?
Mr. Brand is asking me that. Mr. Brand. Caller. Mr. Brand. Caller. He didn't ask Timothy Harris.
Okay, all right. I got you.
Yes, why didn't you ask Mr.
You sure he didn't ask?
Hello. I got you.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, what else you got, Edric?
Bico.
You have Bico? Okay. Why don't I do this first?
A 0.9-acre plot of elevated land is up for sale. This plot overlooks Burden Pasture and Long Point Port and is located at Hamilton Estate, Nevis. For more information and or serious inquiries, call Mr. Edric Stanley at Stanley's Real Estate at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
Sugar City St. Kitts. Keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
Back on this episode of Talk That Get Results with the Honorable Spencer Brand, Conrad Nye Liebert, Edric W. Stanley, Baiko.
I, in the past, was asked by quite a number of divisions about the scheme at BICO, British American. And I would say this: if you're told about an investment, and based on the content of the communication, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And that's a famous quote. I'm not sure who popularized it, who made it famous. But at the same time, we know that there are times when you will be given information regarding an investment, and people who want to get rich quick sometimes gravitate to those kinds of communication.
Baiko was one of those in the interest of time.
The scheme they came up with,
That was one. What part of it was qualified as that?
the one where you put in X number of dollars.
Walk with me. What was the X number of dollars? You don't know?
I don't know.
So what about it was flawed?
Nefarious?
Yes.
Simply because people lost their money.
Edric, I think you probably figured it's time for a light moment or something. Right, Naya? He think it's time for a light moment, right?
Well,
So Naya comes to me with a scheme, right? And I would know it's nefarious after it blows up.
No, you can't do
But
that.
that's what I'm asking you. So how did you know?
I have been around in the...
Yeah, so what signs? How did you know?
Simply because of the amount they were asked to come forward with.
Yes.
And ultimately the growth at which, based on the
Which was
percentage-
what was the good?
I can't remember the figures.
But then what I'm saying, if you don't know, you can't remember something, don't say it then.
Not necessarily.
But how could you say something and you can't remember it?
Well, what I'm trying to tell you.
Good evening, thank you for holding. You have a minute.
Yeah, 1 minute. It's highly unfair for Mr. Stanley to suggest that the thousands of people who lost money in BICO did so out of greed. It was a product that was sold, all the governments were aware of it. It was bad monitoring that I think caused this. Okay? And it's really not right for people to suggest that because somebody made an investment in what was then thought to be a very reputable organization, right? That to say that
okay.
it was of their own making. I agree they should take a loss.
That is why, caller, and we're out of time. That is why I was giving him the opportunity to make his point, but he can't make it because he said he can't remember, and he's still making the point.
Look,
so how can you can't remember my name, but you say, Webbo, how are you? That makes sense?
That's not a real
Brand,
complete comparison.
Mr. Brand is an honorable man. Mr. Brand, that makes sense?
That doesn't make any sense.
I can't remember your name. Webbo, how are you?
Listen, I'm saying to you, if you are told about an investment, and based on the communication you've had by those who are propelling it, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
And what if it doesn't to you sound too good to be true?
Simply because it fell through.
What if...
The harsh reality is that it fell through.
If you do not remember my name, How can you say Webbo, how are you?
Webbo, that is not a complete comparison.
This program repeats at 10 o'clock, following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On The Mark. This is your voice in the community. Thought I get results. You all have a wonderful evening. By the way, Edric, my cousin in England, says to tell you hello. He is listening.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertiser.